Hi, Harimai, and welcome to the second last panel of Marginalia Litfest Live 2026. I'm your host, Jackie Lee Morrison. Thank you for being here, whether you're tuning in live or catching up later with the recording. Thank you to the three people who have tuned in live. Sorry we started a little bit late. We had a couple of tech issues. And I hope more people tune in later, but the replay value on these sessions is excellent. So our ninth panel is romance, but make it queer, with three fantastic queer romance authors. There is a giveaway as well. All of our authors are giving away copies of their books, so stay to the end to find out how to win. I will introduce our authors, and then we'll jump into some questions, have a little bit of yap. It's usually a bit chaotic, but that's why we love it. So first up, Jamie Sands. Jamie is a non-binary Kiwi who's always been wondering, what if? A #1 bestseller on Amazon, they write inclusive, optimistic urban fantasy and romance highlighting queer characters. Jamie grew up in Wellington, but now lives in Auckland with their wonderful spouse and two formerly stray cats. So welcome, Jamie. And I also have really fun sound effects. Next is Isabel Sterling. Isabel writes stories about queer love and resilience with a witty, magical twist. She is the author of several YA and novels, including These Witches Don't Burn, The Coldest Touch, and With All My Haunted Heart. Isabel is also a master certified life coach, the founder of the Confident Author Academy, and the host of the Author Burnout Cure podcast. So welcome to Isabel. And finally, Rosie Evylin. Rosie is the author of magical, cozy mysteries and paranormal romances set in small-town Aotearoa, New Zealand. Her stories feature strong female characters, queer and neurodivergent representation, and witches, familiars, found family, and swoony love stories. So welcome to Rosie as well. Thank you for joining us. It is a beautiful morning here in New Zealand, or at least in Wellington. I don't know about it. Well, it looks pretty sunny for you as well, Jamie. Yeah, looking good.
Yep,
so thank you so much. Yeah, it's nice. We've got Cassie Hart in the chat saying, love the little chair boogies. So thanks for joining us, Cassie. We a little chair boogie as well. Since we only have an hour and that hour tends to go very quickly, I will call on you to speak, but please feel free to jump in. If you're watching live and you have any questions for our panel, write them in the comments as we go, and I'll go through them in about the last 5 minutes of the session. For our panel, if you would like to jump in on something, you can either stick your hand up or you can just take yourself off mute, because I can see when you come off mute, and then I will shut up and you can speak. So to begin with, I would love to hear from all three of you about where the writing journey began and your writing origin story. So I'm going to go clockwise from my screen. So Jamie, why don't you kick us off with your origin story?
I'm one of the people who just has always read books and wanted to write them. I remember being like 10 years old in class, and we had to write like a character description. I read it out for my little group, and everyone was just like, oh, and I was like, oh my God, I can do this? Like, what? And then I decided that poetry was the way to go. So all through my teen years and my degree, I thought I was going to be like a poet that changed the world, like, and made $7 million. Weirdly, that didn't work out. So I switched to novel writing. And I've been publishing since 2018. Yeah.
Amazing. Incredible. You know, something funny that I've had this conversation a few times. So if you're watching this back and you're like, oh God, Jackie said this like 4 times already, I'm sorry. I only have limited material. Okay. I'm one person. So I was talking to the poets Nafanua Purcell Kersel last night, and Amber. And the other day when I was in the Tea for Tea story session with Always Becoming, always said that low-key she wanted to be a rapper. She was up
Amazing.
and then realized that she was really crap at rapping, and so decided to write poetry instead. and that's funny because when I brought this up with the poets are like, yeah, I also am like real wanting to be a rapper, but I'm a slow processor. I can't get into rap battles because it takes me too long to figure out what I want to say. I'd just be like, you go. So the rapper to poet to author, what do you call it, like the line, it's there. So
I
thank you
missed
for
the
sharing,
rapping bit
Jamie.
myself, but
Oh yeah, but I feel like, we all low-key want to be a rapper. So why don't we move to Isabel? Why don't you tell us your writing origin story? And just before we get into that, I will mention Isabel's in New York State, and there are some storms rolling over. So if Isabel drops out, it's not because she hates us, it's because weather hates us. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
Isabel, take it away.
Yeah, so I similarly read constantly. I always had a book in my hand when I was growing up, but I actually went to college to study music writing. So I wrote different types of music and things, did that for 4 years, and then realized that I did not have the chops to write music for Disney as I had thought I would, and went off to do other things. But then in 2012, it was Halloween, and I was driving to my grandma's to take my much younger cousins trick or treating, and it just like suddenly was like the universe was like, I should write a book. And then the next day I started writing a book, and then I just never stopped. And then yeah, my first book actually
Amazing.
came out in 2019.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. That is, yeah, I love that. I love the little serendipitous moments when it's like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I also love how a theme that seems to be emerging is, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't. So I did this instead, which I think is very often the path of the creative. Rosie, why don't you regale us with your origin story?
Yeah, so I guess similar to a lot of authors, I've always been a reader and a writer. I grew up with, my dad's Irish, and I grew up with him telling us stories and making up stories. So we would go into their bed in the mornings and huddle under the duvets, and he would pretend that we were in the huts that they made in the fields back in Ireland, or we would be going to bed and he would make up stories for us, which I found out many years later was him just taking stories he knew and inserting our favourite characters into them. But I just really loved that storytelling was a big part of our life growing up. And when my dad sort of wasn't around, I sort of took over making up stories for my little brother. Oh my goodness, hello kitty cat. And I always sort of I wrote very terrible poetry. I wrote very angsty poetry for the most part, about 100 different beginnings of novels, but never really finishing them. And then in 2023, I saw something on Facebook maybe that was a fundraiser for Alzheimer's, and my gran had Alzheimer's before she died. And so I was like, oh, okay, I want to do something for this. And I decided I would write every day for the month of June. And so during the month of June, I just did whatever I felt like writing. But I was out for a walk one day and I saw this house up on this hill that obviously just in my mind became a witch's house. And then this story sort of started forming in my mind about this person coming to visit this witch. And that was how I started writing the first book in my Glenhaven series. And I published that one in 2023.
Brilliant. Oh, I love that. So the theme that is emerging is we can't do one thing, so we do the next. So can you each give our audience a brief blurb about your latest release so that we can really get a flavor of what it is that you guys are writing? Isabel, I'm going to get you to start first.
Yeah, so my next release, which comes out in September, is With All My Haunted Heart. And it is a sapphic romance about a witch who is hired to ethically haunt a small town bed and breakfast, only to fall in love with one of the co-owners of the manor.
Stunning. I love that. I also will say that I read, I want to, is it Coldest Touch? I'm so bad with titles. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but I read The Coldest Touch, and the yearning and just heat.
Yes.
peak
Yeah, that one's
yearning.
better.
Yeah, absolutely love that. That was a great read. And you wrote that during lockdown as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah, The Coldest Touch was
Mm.
an interesting one because the idea came before COVID, but then a really core part of that book is like the inability to touch other people. And I was like, it was very salient to be writing it during 2020, and then it came out in December of
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I thought that was such an interesting concept. And like I said, the yearning peak. Rosie, why don't you give us a little blurb of your latest release?
Yeah, so where are we? Wisteria Wishes. This one here, Wisteria Wishes, is about Catherine, who is a fire witch, although she's also a bit of an ice queen. She runs the local library, and she also gets attacked by a vampire and loses her powers. So there's a few different things going on for poor Catherine in this book. She's very much used to being her own person, but she ends up having to work with some other people to save the library. There's a very cozy readathon scene in the library. There's also a very fun vampire ball scene. And she teams up with Nancy, who has come to Glenhaven just for a couple of months. She's not staying. She's coming for her daughter's wedding to help her plan that and to set it up. And Nancy is actually a widow, so she lost her late husband a few years ago. And so she's really not coming expecting to find love. Certainly not with another witch. So she's, navigating her own kind of what's my community, what does my life look like now, and her own sort of sexuality story as well. So it's about Catherine and Nancy, and there's a lot of cozy small town vibes.
Beautiful. I'm just going to warn you that if I suddenly start fiddling around, my headphones just told me the battery's low. So if I suddenly can't hear you, it's probably me, and you might see me fiddling around in the background. But let's hope it lasts for the rest of the hour. And Jamie, do you want to give us a little blurb of your latest release, or any book you like?
Well, the last one I put out is a very steamy paranormal, third in the series, one vampire turned in the 1980s, and his himbo, MM Spice. It's very spicy. It's called Neon Nightfall. But the next one I'm putting out next month is called Fiber and Ink, and it's part of the Foggy Basin project, which is like multiple authors all writing in this little same small town. It's the third year, so we're kind of, the small town's kind of getting quite big. But my story is trans man moving back home to try and make it writing poetry, funnily enough, and falling in love with his best friend's big brother, who has an alpaca.
I love that. Wow, nice. You know, it's funny because very often I think in cozy romance and in romance, we often there are two industries I think that we romanticize. One is being a restaurateur or owning a cafe or something along those lines, and the other one is owning a library or owning a bookstore. Those are the two that we really romanticize. So Jamie, how is it owning a bookstore in real life? Is it as romantic as you believed?
Weirdly, no, because it turns out running a secondhand bookshop means that you're in charge of a very small business. And unfortunately, unlike in the books, we're not making $1,000 a day. So you kind of are having to work out like, okay, how do I bring more people in and all that. Having said that, it is absolutely wonderful. Like it's
Yes.
my partner
Yeah.
and I co-run it together, and there's just so little stress, and it's super lovely. We've actually just passed our 1-year anniversary of owning it. So after this, I'm going in, and we've invited like the previous owner and some people who've helped us out and our favorite regulars to come in and have a little bit of wine and cheese.
Oh.
So it's very cute.
Love that. And just quickly, give us a blurb of, or not a blurb, give us a plug for the bookstore. What's it called? Where is it located?
It's called Blue Hills Books. It is in Parnell, Auckland, right up the top of the rise opposite the cathedral, or round the corner from Pandora Bakery if you're food oriented the way I am. And we do have a website. There's not a lot of books on there because it's tricky to run an online database while also selling physical books. at the same time. But if you're ever looking for something, just message us and we'll see if we can find it for you.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're in the Auckland area, please do go visit Jamie and their partner at Blue Hill Books. So let's dig into romance then, and particularly queer romance. I mean, this is a pretty basic question, but why? Why do you write queer romance? You know, why? Why do you write queer romance? What is it about queer romance that really appeals to you? Rosie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about this earlier. Romance, I think, because I've always been a hopeless romantic. Like, ever since I was a kid, I've just been a hopeless romantic. That's kind of part of who I am. I love the kind of the fierce optimism of romance, I think. You know, we live in this sometimes very dark world, and I think romance has this core story of love conquering, and I just think that's really what we need sometimes. So yeah, I think romance for me is about kind of fierce optimism. And queer romance, slightly embarrassingly, started off for me because I went to write this book and I went, well, I don't know how to write from a guy's perspective, so I'll just write two female characters. Which is, you know,
Valid.
a slightly interesting way to get into it.
I don't even know that men know how to write from male perspectives, so totally valid.
Yeah. And then I later realised that actually the men that women want in romance books are women written men, not like genuine men. So I was like, oh, actually, this is probably fine. But it's been a really cool journey, actually. And I think sort of writing queer romance has helped me interact with the queer writers community, has helped me with my own kind of journey of identity and discovery. So it's been really special for me. It's just kind of funny that it came about, as far as I knew, by accident. But, you know, maybe there's no accidents in this world, right?
Happy accidents. Yeah, it's interesting because always, when I was talking to Always Becoming the other day, she said that her journey to realizing she was trans was reading other trans poets and reading trans poetry and realizing that it was okay for her to be a woman, which was, you know, that's a huge part of the identity issue, is that you're told it's not okay. So for her to read that work and then realize, yes, this is who I am, and I think that that's an important part of both reading and writing queer romance, queer anything that looks at your identity, and puts it under a lens and just makes it representative. So Isabel, how about you? Why are you drawn to romance?
Yeah, so similarly, so sort of like there's two pieces. So there's the why queer books in general. And that I had a similar story where this is back in 2015. I thought I was a very good ally who was straight and just for some reason kept writing these queer books. And then I had my awakening when I was 26 and I was like, oh, right, this is why this keeps happening. And so when I was writing for young adults, I did a lot of there was always romantic pieces, but it was, sort of like a paranormal thriller, more of a vibe with romance. But then I've made this pivot into like adult romance specifically. And that came because a couple years ago, we had a really tragic death in the family. And I just romance got me through that. I just read so many romance novels and some that even tackled grief, but having the safety of knowing that it was going to end happy at the end of the book, it gave me enough I don't know, comfort and safety to actually engage with those books. And so when it came time to pitch a new book, I was like, I want to be in this space. And then of course it just had to be witches. But yeah, I mean, as a queer woman, I just or queer non-binary person, I can't imagine writing a straight romance. I just I don't even know that I don't even know how or when or why I would ever do that. No, thank you.
And I will say as well that the pass line from ally to shit, I'm queer. It's a pretty straight line.
Yeah, there are so many of my friends who write sapphic books and realize that a lot of them were like sort of like later in life bisexuals, like, oh, got it. There's a lot of us.
Yeah, 100%. So Jamie, why do you write queer romance? What is it about queer romance that really appeals to you?
I mean, ditto. But I guess for me, like, I had ingested so much straight romance like my whole life, and being a teenager in the 90s, I fell in love with one of my best friends, and she very politely turned me down. And I realized that all of the TV I'd seen, all of the movies which had queer people, had one of them die. Philadelphia was one that was really big, or like Friends, where the lesbians were like this joke, like, oh, Ross is so crap he can't even keep a woman, and it just sort of got, and I went, it's too hard, like I'll just date guys because I'm pansexual, I'll fall in love with anyone. It's a problem. So when it came time to write romance, I thought it happened because I went to the Romance Writers in New Zealand conference, which is a really amazing conference, and I got really powered up, and I was like, yeah, I've got this idea, and I was like, I just couldn't imagine writing it straight, partly because there's already so much in the world, and I was sick of reading it myself at that point, but also because so many of the stories that I'd read are about tragedy, or they are about, dying of AIDS, or we're a beautiful old gay couple and one of us dies. There's just this, it's still happening. So I was like, no, I'm going to give these guys happy endings, and I'm going to give them like really sweet, lovely things, and change the world. We'll see. Probably not, but like the more that's out there, the more I feel comfortable, I guess. And like I do the Armageddon Expos, which is like our local Comic Con, and I still get people coming up going, oh my God, I didn't know, that you could have gay romance that is just happy,
I think that leads us beautifully into my next question.
Awesome.
Because my next question is all about why it is so important to have these stories of queer joy. Because Jamie, you specifically say in your bio, right? Yeah, you did. Let's dive into it. Let's dive into it a little bit deeper. Because like you say, there are often stories of queer tragedy, and I love that in your bio you say that your stories are inclusive and optimistic. And so let's talk a little bit about the need for inclusive, optimistic stories of queer joy. Yeah. Isabel, you wanna go in first? Jamie's already said what Jamie said.
Yeah, I mean, obviously so much of what Jamie said is relevant to me too. There's a couple pieces, I think, especially for me, like coming from a very like genre heavy, where like there's always magic, and there's before I went full force into the romance, there was like a murder mystery and all these things, but I just like, those are the kinds of books that I read growing up, and there were never queer characters in them. And for the longest time, and still too, like if you were going to get queer characters, it had to be a coming out narrative, or often lots of tragedy. And while those, like, it is so important to have books that tackle some of the harsher realities, ideally coming from actual like queer authors, but we don't want that to be all there is. And so being able to show the other side of the coin is really important, and especially to provide examples of, I'm thinking too, like, especially I used, having come from the YA space, I also used to run an LGBTQ center that supported youth here locally, and being able to like hand books to these kids and knowing that like you get to see somebody who is like you, and yes, they're going to have some struggles, but like they get to like be the hero and have a happy ending. I think it helps create like hope and create, it's so hard to imagine for yourself a future that you've never seen be like told is okay and is possible. So I think that's a lot of it for me. And then part of it too is, I guess, all of that, I find it very helpful and healing for me to spend a lot of my brain space time in happy stories. Um, I have some friends who write some really great, like, darker stuff, and I'm like, "That's amazing." I think I would lose myself if I had to write that and be in that all the time. So also just selfishly, it makes me happy. And I think being happy is a worthwhile thing.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think being happy is the highest form of self care. So, Rosie, what do you think? Why is it important for you to write happy, joyful stories, queer romance?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the same things that Isabel and Jamie have said. It's that so one of my core values is matatika, which for me is about kind of justice and integrity. And so, there is definitely a part of me that gets really ragey at the idea that all of the stories about queer characters end in death or have this kind of, yeah, almost this undercurrent of, yeah, but that's not really okay. And so I think just actually emphasizing that queer romance is romance, and why can't there be romance books in the same way for queer people that there are for heterosexual people? Like, this is normal, this is beautiful, and this is something to be celebrated and appreciated. Very much in the cozy genre. I really love creating that really cozy sort of space. I was sort of halfway through writing a kind of crime thriller when I was like, actually, do you know what? I just need to go into something that's going to be really happy and it's something that just feels safe for me psychologically. And very similar to you, Isabel. I very much love kind of creating these worlds of magic and where it just feels like, yes, there's scary stuff going on, but you feel kind of held and you feel like you know that things are going to be okay. To me, I think, yeah, that's really, really important. So.
Thank you. Well, all three of you write in the speculative fiction realm. So, do you think that it's easier in some ways to write queer romance in that realm? Or is it just a happy coincidence that you get to pair up things that you love? Jamie's looking at the sky, so I'm going to ask Jamie.
It's an interesting
You can
question.
tell I used to teach, right? I used to you can tell that I'm like used to picking on the kid who doesn't look like they want to answer.
Well, yeah, it does make it easier because in some ways with paranormal, with the books I write, especially when I do historical fantasy, you're kind of throwing the rules out anyway. So it's easier to kind of break those social norms and have the guys getting married or in secret or stuff like that happening, or people being non-binary and trans, because they're already outside of the expected, I guess. Yeah, I've done a bunch of historical fantasy and I've never leaned into it being a homophobic world. I don't want to write that. So yeah, I think that's what I do is I go, it's magical already. They're at a magical university or whatever it is. So it's, that this one's a werewolf, whatever, it's already outside of the the expected, straight, white, whatever. Yeah, that's fascinating. I never actually thought of it like
that. What do you think, Isabel? Is it something that you think of consciously? Is it just I like magical stories and I like speculative fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is both. I think for me, part of it, again, like, selfishly, is like, I don't know that I could write a book that didn't have magic. It's just too fun. Like, if I'm gonna be making up a whole world anyways, like, why not add magic? And it is interesting, like, the way I've approached books that are, like, set in our world with a dash of magic. And then I'm actually working on a book now that's won't be out until 2028. It's my next YA, but it's set in a second world fantasy, and I specifically have built that to be completely queer normative. And so we have like a magic, not a magic, a marriage competition sort of set up, and we're like prince, but then like all the different 10 suitors, there's men, there's women, there's non-binary folks, like, and that's just normal. And then having to think through like, what are all the ripple effects? Like, what are all the things that change if that's the case in this world? And so it kind of becomes a way of like, what could our world look like if we just let that be normal and let that be, get rid of the sort of like heterosexual, like the heteronormativity. Um, and so that is a little bit of a different way to approach it. Uh, but it definitely, yeah, I don't know, magic is just fun. Like, why wouldn't we sprinkle it
Magic
in?
is fun.
Yeah, I mean, I love witches, I
Yeah,
love vampires, I
100%.
love all of it.
I love that. Rosie, what about you? Do you agree with the statement, or are you just like, nah, I just like magic?
I definitely just like magic as well. I think so. I read the irregular, no, the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches a few years ago, and went, oh my gosh, people can write magic books for adults, and it just completely blew my mind. And so I was like, this is the most exciting thing ever. And so I think from there it was, yeah, I kind of went, oh my gosh, I can write a book about magic and I can write a book about love, and it can be kind of whatever I want it to be. Similar again to you, Isabel, my books are so in our world, although mine are set in like a fictional small town and so it's kind of, I can take a little bit of license, but it's kind of got a bit of the basics of the real world in it. And it's definitely been something that as I kind of matured in my writing journey and my queerness journey and all of these sorts of things, I've been learning more about things like queer norm and all of that sort of stuff. And so I've kind of made my books more and more queer norm over time. I think I wondered more in the first book whether I should make it a deal about the fact that there was, a sapphic couple in this small Aotearoa town, and kind of was like, is it inauthentic to say that everyone just loves them and it's not a big deal at all? Like, how do we reflect that? But I think the more that I heard about this kind of queer norm concept, and I was just like, oh yeah, like that's better. Let's just have that. So yeah, I think it is that can we write the world that's just like a little bit better than what our current world is? And for me, that is very much magic and acceptance and all of the good things.
I definitely agree with that. I would love there to be magic in the world. I would love there to be more acceptance in the world. Like, the dream. I could see Jamie going off into the faraway dream. The faraway. So I'm always incredibly interested in the question of who you're writing for, but at the same time, who your audience actually is. So have you been surprised at all by the actual demographic who are reading your books? Isabel, what do you think?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like, I feel like I'm on like this cusp of like learning who my audience is about to be in adult. Um, I definitely, when I was writing YA, I definitely had a lot of adults who would reach out. Like, I once had a woman in her 80s reach out and was just like, I never read anything like this growing up, and was just like so glad that she had it. Which I was like, oh, I only wrote this for teenagers, but I love that adults read it too. Um, for this book, With All My Haunted Heart, I really, I mean, so much of that book was honestly just my own healing journey, was just like writing that book, and like working through grief and all of that. Um, but yeah, I'm really curious to see who ends up picking it up. I imagine it's obviously going to appeal a lot to sapphic readers. Um, and we'll see. I don't know. I'm really curious to see like once it actually is out in 52 more days. We'll find out.
52 days. Woo. Jamie, what do you think? Been surprised? Who are you writing for primarily, and have you been surprised?
Mostly I'm writing for me, I think. Possibly younger me, who didn't have these stories. But also, so years ago, I have a friend from high school, and she was beta reading for me. And I wrote a story. How did I start this? Get brain in order. I went to one of the Armageddons I went to. I had a teenager ask if any of my books didn't have romance in them because they didn't want to read about romance, and I was like, good point. I could write a YA book with no romance, so I did. I wrote this. It's about 100 pages, called Onesies and Ouija Boards, which has a non-binary main character. First time I'd done it. No romance. And I sent it to my friend who was beta reading, and she said, "Can I show this to my kid, my 12-year-old, because they're going through some identity stuff right now." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And the next thing, I had fan art in the mail from this kid who had drawn the character and been like, "It's the first time I've felt seen." And I was like, because amazing, right? And that actually happened a couple of times with that book with different friends' kids. So in some ways I'm writing for me, and in some way I'm writing for these kids who come and find me at Armageddon's and are like, "Is this book non-binary?" or whatever, because it's just not very out there, especially not like in their school libraries. So yeah, both, I would say. And then when it comes to the more spicy stuff, that's just me writing fanfic.
Now, I will say last year we got into a bit of an unhinged chat about spice. I'm keen to do that again. If we want, I'm gonna give you a warning now. We're gonna have a little chat about spice, because I just love making everyone uncomfortable. So, Rosie, let's have you been surprised by your demographic, and who are you writing for?
Yeah, I keep being like, "Oh yeah, I should find out who my demographic is. Who's reading my books?" I think because I'm still, reasonably early on in the writing journey. I know that I know some of the people who are reading my books and things, but I don't necessarily have that much detail about my demographic. Um, I think one of the things that I've been pleasantly surprised about is how international my audience is. So that's been really lovely. And I think maybe part of that is because my books are set in Aotearoa, and whereas for me that's very normal, I think for people who live overseas, they're like, "Oh wow, that's exciting, that's new and different." So that's been a really delightful development. Like I just sent a little book box off to Switzerland to a reader there. So that was really, really sweet. And I very much do write for myself. I think I don't intentionally write as therapy, but the books have had because they've got queer rep, but then also like one of the characters in the first book has anxiety. One of the characters in the second book has ADHD. As I was going through my kind of journey, yeah, right. I feel like we're all on a similar page here too. And the third book has some grief. So yeah, they're kind of I think again it's so important to have this representation out there and to have just different life experiences written in a way that is safe and respectful, and it can help us process it. Hopefully it can support other people to either see and understand it for themselves. I did have one reader kind of say to me, "Oh, this has really helped me understand my niece," and I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." So things like that I think are really powerful too. Yeah, I feel like I've lost my brain here, but we know roughly what I'm saying.
Listen, this festival is called Marginalia because we're all marginalized in some way, and most of us have ADHD, so don't even worry about it. It makes these conversations spicier. Speaking of spice, here we go. Now, for romance, you can have high spice romance, you can have spice romance. I'm also going to say I did not prepare this question. This is off the top of my head. I'm throwing this at the panelists. They're just going to, this is my fun moment as opposed to where I get to throw things at you. You can have high spice romance, you can have low spice romance. Where are you comfortable? What kind of spice do you like writing, if any? And when it comes to queer romance, do you think that spice is going to be distracting from the story or distracting from what you're trying to do, or is it just like another layer of deliciousness in the cake? Jamie.
I'm literally all over the place with this because it depends on the story and it depends on the pen name I'm using. So I'd say probably so for my romantic comedies and my well, like this series, Overtures and Cultism, there's no spice at all. It's just they kiss, that's it. But for most of my romantic comedies, most of my romantic comedies, I'm kind of in a sweet with heat place, which is like there is some, but it's not the main thing. It's just like a little reward at the end. But if never. And then my other pen name, Drake Lamarck, that's allspice all the time, and that's expected for my readers of that pen name. So if I had one which was a real slow burn and there was no spice for ages, I had to write a little disclaimer in the front being like, guys, I'm sorry, these people could not get themselves together. It takes a while, but it's worth it at the end, I promise. So yeah, I've got no good answer for this. It's it depends, I guess, how I'm feeling.
But I think also, I wonder as well if once you've sort of delved to the romance realm, you do need to have that separation of this is going to be the cozy romance under this.
I think so. Yeah,
this is going to be the spicy romance,
because you don't want to mismarket it and have people be like, because I've had poor reviews on Overdues and Occultism because there is no spice in it, and I'm like, but I never said it would. Like, you just, that's your problem. That's a thing you've brought to it. But sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I should just write this like extra little short story and put it in my newsletter or something. But then I'm like, I've written four books of these characters plus short stories. I've never gone there with them. It starts to feel weird, right? Like,
and I love Overdues and Occultism. It's a cozy, sweet romance.
And it's a witch
I think,
in a library, by the way.
Yeah.
Rosie.
Exactly. I would say that if in Overdues and Occultism, after you had built up this very sweet romance, they just suddenly started banging, I think I would have been very thrown off. Yeah.
It
would have been weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
no good answers.
Thank you, Jamie. Rosie, do you have any good answers?
No good answers. Some answers. I think, yeah, it's been interesting. I don't know if I just didn't come to romance until later in life or what, but I think my writing journey is very much like just that. It's a journey. So I write these ones cozy, and I really enjoy that. But I think if I start reading really spicy stuff, then I start being like, oh, maybe I should. Oh, no, hold on, because you've still got that reader promise with your pen name, right? So I very much started writing that cozy, sweet sort of stuff because that was what I was comfortable with. And I think over time I've sort of gone, oh, sex isn't bad. Oh, like just having all of this kind of, let's get rid of some of the internalized misogyny and patriarchy and all of these other excellent things that society throws at us. And that's not to say that I don't think cozy has a place, but I think part of the reason that I wouldn't have originally felt comfortable writing spice was because of kind of almost external perceptions of what was okay and wasn't okay. And I think I've now sort of understood a little bit more that actually anything's fine, consenting, etc. But so now I am quite keen to write some spice, but I think it would need to be under a different pen name. So yeah, that's definitely on my list. I'm trying to make sure that I keep the reader promise with the Glenhaven series, but I think there will probably be a different pen name with a bit more spice in it as well. So yeah.
Love that. And Isabel, what about you? Where do you land on spice?
Yeah, so as a reader, I will read across the spectrum from like no spice to like the limit does not exist. Give me all the spice. Like I will read the entire spectrum. As a writer, I have noticed. So I just finished the second book in the series in terms of like edits. Will come out next year. But I've noticed that the first time writing for adults, putting explicit sex on page was I just sort of felt like, am I gonna get in trouble? And I just was like hiding in my shirt. I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this because I spent the first huge chunk of my career, not huge chunk, but the first big chunk of my career writing for teens, and it's a very different way you handle those topics. And I think part of it for me has been getting more and more comfortable with like it's okay to actually like write these things, and so I've gotten more comfortable and I could imagine like my books continuing to like get a little spicier with like each one as I get more and more comfortable. Like, I'm, what if my mom reads this? Like, what's gonna happen? That's gonna be weird. And like my stepdad always listens to my book on audio, and I'm like, you have to skip a couple chapters because you're not listening to that in audio. So there's some of that that I'm still getting over. But I like writing it, and I think there's so much character work that can happen there. Um, but yeah, I do agree that like what else has been said about the promises you make with a particular series or particular pen name, and really like meeting those reader expectations. I know I once read, I hadn't realized, I think it was like part of but it was an author whose books are typically very spicy and very well written, and I was just like, whew. And then she wrote something, and I think it was sort of like in some series that a publisher was doing, and there was only a kiss in the entire book, and I was just kept waiting, and I'm just like, "But when are they gonna" "Oh, never, I guess." "Okay." And so I think I find that, like, disappointing where I'm just, like, going in expecting it, and then it's not there, and I'm like, "Oh, got it. Okay. Okay." But yeah, I don't know, I think it'd be so far my books have done the sort of, like, 2, like, big sex scenes in the book and then, little bits things here and there. Um but I know some people like, it's like several times throughout the book, and I'm, maybe someday I'll work up to that, but right now it's not yet.
It's funny that you were saying how you sort of feel a little bit like, oh gosh, don't perceive me when you're when you're writing your queer spicy scenes. I had a similar experience writing a sex scene in my book where you can see this bookshelf behind me. My desk used to face it, and now it faces out the window so that when I do video calls, I'm not super dark. And because of the gaps, and because that's where the rest of my house is, I would be able to see when my husband was coming into the kitchen, and so I'd be like there, like bright red, writing my little spicy scene, and then I'd see my husband. I'd be like, "No, don't look, go away, don't perceive me." It's like a real thing you got to get over for yourself. And I love the journey, though. I think the journey is such a fun place to be. Well, we are running out of time. Like I said, these hours, they just go so fast. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we do have a couple of questions in the chat. And if you're watching and you'd like to ask our panel any other questions, please do them in the chat as well now. So my last question, which is one I ask every single panel because I think it's a great moment for you to just reflect on your journey and reflect on yourself. Is there anything that you now know about yourself or about publishing that you wish you knew when you first started? Rosie, you're still pretty green, but I'm going to go to you first.
Really green. I was thinking about this when I was looking through the questions this morning, and I think part of me is really glad that I was naive about things like the fact that writing is really hard, and that you're not instantly a millionaire just when you publish a book. I actually think it's probably quite good that I did come into it a little bit naive. I think that's quite positive. And I actually think in some ways writing queer books and then realizing that I was queer was kind of meant that I was able to be braver about what I published faster. I'm not sure that I would have, I feel like it would have been more of an emotional process for me to go, oh, am I going to publish this book as part of my identity and things like, whereas now I'm like, oh, well, I've published some queer books and now it turns out that I'm queer. So, okay, cool. I guess I've done that. That's great. So to some extent, I think it's kind of nice that I was a little bit naive when I began. The main thing I think that I have really loved about the writing journey that I wish I knew earlier was just how incredible the community is. So the romance writing community and the queer romance writing community in particular, I think it's just such an incredibly welcoming, supportive space. And yeah, I just feel really, really fortunate to be part of it, and really, really fortunate with how patient and kind and generous and supportive everyone is. So yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosie. And Isabel, what about you? What do you know about yourself or about publishing that you wish you knew?
Yeah, so when I was first putting out my debut in, like, 2019, in trad publishing. So I sold it in 2017. It just took a very long process. But so during that, I had really struggled with comparison with other authors, feeling like I wasn't doing enough, wasn't good enough. I really struggled with burnout back then. And I think if I could take sort of like me now and go back then and just be like, listen, this one book does not, like, your whole career does not rest on this one book. And giving myself a little bit more space to enjoy the process. That's a big thing I focus on now is like, I'm hoping, my goal is to have, 20, 30, 40 published books, over the next rest of my life. Um, but like ultimately at the end of the day, in the day-to-day moments, it's like I want to enjoy the writing above all else. And so I wish I could kind of go back and give that to me a little bit sooner than I actually got to it.
Yeah, that's such good advice, because it is all about the joy. The thing that you can control is the thing that you're doing. So have joy in it. Be at peace with the thing that you're doing. And Jamie, what about you? What do you wish you knew?
For me, there's two things. One of them is slow down. I started writing and self-publishing when I had no other job, and I was really very panicked to get as much out as possible to make money from. And I think some of those books suffered as a result. So just something I'm still trying to learn, honestly. I don't know how to slow down. I'm really trying to make myself, but it's a problem. The other one that's really big, and it's another thing I have to keep learning again and again, is that you're allowed to write whatever you want. And like, to unpack that, when I first started writing, I'd done an English literature degree, and I was like, oh no, everything has to be super worthy and like have a big theme, and it has to, reach all these people. And no, if I want to, I can just write about a vampire. It's fine. And they can go to Japan if they want. It's okay. Like, I can just write the thing that makes me really happy, because when you put what you're really passionate about into the book, that makes it better, and it will reach other people, and they'll be like, oh my God, this was so cool. So it's kind of a permission thing. Like, it's okay. You can write that thing. You can write The Witch. You can write the magical bookshop that makes $1,000 a day, like, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of questions in the chat. And this one has come from Grace. I'm just gonna see it. Grace 2. So Grace said, I came in late, so I'm really sorry if this was already covered earlier. Is there a book that you would consider a foundational queer romance text for you as a reader and a writer? Who wants to take that first?
For me, it was, this is Care Bear, by the way. For me, it was a series by Francesca Leah Block called the Dangerous Angels series. It starts with Weetzie Bat, and it's about this weird family living in LA, and there's a gay couple in there, Dirk and Duck. Everyone's got silly names. It's great. That was really the first book that I read, a series that I read that had just queer characters and everyone was cool and weird stuff happens and that's fine. So for that one, and Rainbow Boys by Alex Sanchez, which I think was late 90s. Yeah, no, it's just about high school boys finding out they're gay. It's like Heartstopper before Heartstopper.
Love that. Isabel, what about you? Do you think that you have a foundational queer text?
Yeah, so it's one that is not from like my childhood or teenhood, but right after I came out, I read Dahlia Adler's Under the Lights, and it is, it's a sapphic romance in there, and it was the first time I like read sapphic after I realized that I liked women, and yeah, it was great, and I actually gave it a shout out in my debut, These Witches Don't Burn. The characters are like reading it in the book, because it was like, oh, like this is what it feels like to like feel seen in a book.
And Rosie, do you have a foundational queer romance text?
Not really. I think, yeah, it took a while before I realized that like sapphic fiction existed. And then I kind of just consumed as much as possible for a while there. And so I'm definitely still on my like, ooh, give me all the sapphic books journey.
Yes.
A couple of authors that I really enjoyed were Rachel Lacey and Ashley Herring Blake. And I really love Rachel Heron's recent book as well, The
Yes.
Seven Miracles. Yeah, that's really beautiful. But yeah, I'm just very excited that there's like all this sapphic fiction out there, and yeah, just lapping it up.
Beautiful. We have an interesting question here, which I was debating whether or not I was going to read it out, because the thing about it is that this, I think this is a general queer question. So, but I also think that it's something that's important to talk about. So somebody has asked, hey, how should I ask for pronouns from another fellow LGBTQ member like myself? Jamie, what do you think?
I don't think it really has to be a big project. Just say, hey, what are your pronouns? It's really as simple as that, because if people have big feelings about pronouns, they're going to be really happy that you asked.
Yes, and I think that's a perfect answer, and we don't need to go around the table. So, but thank you for that question, because I think it is important to understand that people have feelings about their pronouns. They have feelings about identity. You have feelings about identity, and it is important that we're all on the same page with one another for, as we said earlier, a better, happier, more inclusive world, the dream. I'm also going to read out just a couple of comments here from Cassie, because I love Cassie, and Cassie had some great comments. Hope is so important. It's amazing to have your books available for our kids. That was directed to Jamie. And also, just a beautiful little anecdote. I used to write my spicy scenes at the library, so I didn't procrastinate. So that's one way to do it as well. Well, we are going to have to wrap up, because we are pretty much out of time. So thank you again so much to Jamie, Isabel, and Rosie for joining me today. I'm going to stick their Instagram accounts and their websites up, so you can find Rosie and Rosie's books at www.rosieevylin.com, and you can follow Rosie on Instagram at Rosie Evylin. Isabel is on isabelsterling.com, and you can find out more about Isabel and Isabel's books there. And you can also follow Isabel on Instagram at isa_sterling. And Jamie has a WordPress blog, which you can go and read about Jamie's thoughts, as well as get hold of Jamie's books. And you can follow Jamie on Jamie Sand Author on Instagram. As we mentioned earlier as well, Jamie does have a gorgeous bookstore in Auckland. So please do go visit Blue Hills Books in Parnell in Auckland. Thank you so much. All of our authors are giving away copies of their books. Isabel is giving away a physical copy of With All My Haunted Heart. Jamie is giving away an ebook of Overdues and Occultism. And if you're on Smashwords, there is a free ebook of King of Pride available there. So you can go over to Smashwords and get involved with that. Jamie, do you want to say something about that?
I just want to say King of Pride is the prequel to the book that I'm releasing next, that I talked about with the alpaca farm. So it's important reading if you're going to die by burning.
Very important reading. You need the background for the alpaca farm. And Rosie is giving away a physical copy of her latest release, Wisteria Orchids. If you would like to win these 3 books, then all you need to do is leave a comment below with your Instagram handle and say one sentence why you'd like to win. And I'll pick a winner and announce it on my Instagram, which is popping up on screen now at Jaxie'sLM. If you click that, it'll take you to my Instagram and you can follow me there. Marginalia is a completely free festival, but if you would like to support my mahi and enable me to keep doing things like this and the things I love, you can buy me a coffee through my Ko-fi. So the link is on screen now. It is also in the description box below. Thank you so much to everyone who has already bought me a coffee. My goal is, with the coffee money, to basically travel around and buy coffees for all the people who've been involved in the festival. So your coffee money enables me to buy coffee for my friends. Our last panel for Marginalia this year is going to be in just under 30 minutes. And yeah, it is the very last one. So please join One New Zealand for Southeast Asian authors to add to your TBR with Tamika Songkao and Joseph Trinidad. And thank you again to Jenny, Isabel, and Rosie for this beautiful, joyous hour of queer romance. So thank you so much. And we'll see you in just under half an hour. Bye.